Hi there, I'm Kurt Rasmussen. Some people have been asking about how I set up my sharpening spot and to go through how to sharpen a knife on the Wicked Edge Generation 3 Pro sharpening system. So first of all, what I like to do is I like to set up. I'll start with my oils first and stuff. So I'm just to the right. So my here. There's the bench, and there's one wall, and there's the other wall. So on the wall, right next to my bench, is right here. That's where I set up all my oils and lubricants, polishing things, that kind of tape. And then on my other wall, I like to set up. These are all my extra stones. I always like to keep an extra pair on hand of each of them. Having extra clamps, and then got I got the scissor adapter to sharpen scissors. This is a Tormac that's used to sharpen thin angle blades, but that it was before Wicked Edge made. Where is it? I do have a low angle adapter. For some reason I can't find it. Whatever. So I have that, and it does a way better job than this. This is Tormac one, will drive you insane. But the Wicked Edge low angle adapter is awesome. Maybe like one of my drawers somewhere. Oh, yeah, there it is. There's a low angle adapter. So that just clips. That just clips in the clamp. You see in the clamp, and then use a wrench to open and close this. And so it raises it up a good almost 2 inches, so that your arms can now get a really fine angle. There we have it. Always have a medical kit. Trust me, you'll thank me if you have one here. It's very useful. And I have Q-tips and markers, fan because it gets really stinking hot in here. And then my other wall is all my sharpening information. I got hundreds and hundreds of knives and other different angles, and I always like to set up for Wicked Edge, the sharpening routine, or sharpening progression. So it's just nice to have a quick reference. And then, yeah, I think that's everything. And then, oh yes, there's some other stones on my wall up there. stones everywhere. Okay, so I'm sure that was not exciting. So let's get to the part where it's useful for you. So today I chose just a standard kitchen knife. This one is 17 years old, and I keep on sharpening it, and it keeps on going. So the first thing that you want to do, I strongly advise either I like the green. You can get the blue painter's tape, but sometimes the blue might be too sticky for some coatings, and it might leave a residue. So I find that the green one, the really weak sticky stuff, seems to work the best. So what I'd like to do is first of all I put my my tape so that I have a good area, because I don't know where I'm going to clamp it right now. So I have a nice big area to choose from where to put the clamp. And I do the same thing with the other side. And then I know this knife clamps well, so I don't need to do it again, but sometimes you'll have to do two on each side, because if you have to clamp really hard, it will cut through the tape. Even the blue will cut through the blue tape, and it will you might scratch your coating. So, but I know this knife well. So there's a little bit hanging off. I like to make my spine nice and flush. Okay, next. So here, make sure that you're make sure that you loosen all your, or make sure you loosen these screws that attach that yeah, my brain's some just loosen the screws for that are on the arms, so that you can adjust it. So this is okay. So loosen this, because this is your fine adjustment that you will want to be able to have access to. So make sure this is nice and loose, and make sure you have a good healthy distance, because you don't know where exactly that this is going to go. So you give yourself some room to work with. So I kind of have a speech problem, so hopefully you can bear with me. Make sure this is tight. So this is on the arm. Sometimes it gets loose over time. Make sure that's tight. All right, now that you have everything loose and ready to go, you can use these these holes. This is shallow, and the second one is deep. But some knives the way that they're made, you can't use this, and you gotta stick it, you know, basically down to the bottom. Um, but you'll, over time, you will know what knives do what, and where they sit. But for now, so the wider the knife, you need to go deeper. Skinnier, there's a more not wide the knife. You have to go up higher here. So I'm going to go down to here. Now you want, so you can't just put it any way you want. You have to make sure that it's set in the right area. So I kind of like to set it, for me, as close to the middle as I can, but not sacrificing the amount of grip area that I have for the blade. So for me, right there is good. You'll notice as the stone comes down right to the point, if you have it too low, you can actually push that point off, and you have to get it repointed. It's just a pain. So for this knife, because that curvature is not really extreme, I'm going to make it almost, I know for this knife it's about almost flat. So then after I have that in place, I get my this arm and push it down, lock it in place. Okay? Now, in the next stage, some people know this and some people don't. Some people like to use, there's a ruler that comes with Wicked Edge that you can use. It sticks in here and uses a letter and number system to figure out where you are, and for you to keep a journal. I don't. I just do my thing. So in this case, or on all cases, I get my black Sharpie and I go like that on one side and do the same thing on the other. Now I do that so that I know immediately that if I'm sharpening, that if this knife moves out of the grip at all, then I can, without having to re-measure and rethink where it was, I'm just gotta basically put the knife and line up with the black marks, and that way it's just faster. Also on the Generation 3 Pro. If you can see this is a tension guide. So, but it's only accessible once that arm is in the vertical position. Then you set your tension to whatever it is. So furthest to the left is going to give you more. Oh, actually, that's all. I must have had a different knife on. So you see, I had to change the tension to the far left, which moved the knife. But now, because I already have the markings there, I just moved it back in place instantly without having to rethink. And we're good. Now that it's in place, remove the pin. It won't blow up. Oh no, let's look at this one. Very, well, to me it's very important. And next I get a more black permanent marker. Mark the end, or mark the edge, the cutting edge. Done. Now we're ready to sharpen. So, what stones do I use? Some people ask. So, I have the 5080. See that? 5080. $100, $200. Oh, that one's kind of worn out. Anyway, the bottom one is 100, the orange is 200. 400, 600. This was the orange one, or yellow one is 400, and the green is 600. 800, 1,000. 1,500. Now this is a glass back, and on here it's 9 micron. And then 2 glass backs, 6 micron, 3 micron. When you set these, when you set your lapping tape down, make sure it's not set down like this. Either set it like this with the two same together, or bag them up. Then I got my ceramics. So I got the coarse one is 1.4 micron, and the fine one is 0.6 micron. This is for super polishing. It's awesome, and it will outlive every stone that you possibly own. I have water stones. So this is 5,000, this is 10,000 grit. Kind of fun to work with sometimes. And my leathers. So these are ones you cannot contaminate these, or you'll bug up your blade and all the work that you do. So this one has 2 micron diamond emulsion. This has 4 micron diamond emulsion. So I stick them I take the 2 micron face to face, stick them together, and then wrap it so they don't get dust and stuff blown all over it. And yes, I have 2 water stones. I just couldn't grab it. It's out of my reach. All right, and then I have a diamond plate I used to work on for either my tips or for, I don't know, I don't use it too much. Then I have the very rough kind of guys. You know the ones you find in the hardware store for woodworking or metalworking. Obviously these ones are metal, they're for metal. These I use in conjunction with some other hand diamonds. I use them for axes and lawnmower blades, and then I actually go down on my grits here on those blades by hand. The reason I do that and to not use not use a machine is, I mean, you can use a machine. I'm not saying you can't. You just have to be careful. You don't want to screw up the heat treatment. Once you if I put a grinder on here and this turns it at all any color close to orange, my heat treatment's gone, and that knife is gonna be, well, it just won't last. You'll be sharpening it every freaking day. So just be wary of that if you do use a machine like a Tormac machine or those vertical sanders. Just make sure that you are careful. I personally don't recommend that to anybody. Alright, enough talk here. So, where does a person start when they're sharpening? Well, this blade I know is not, oh, come on. This blade I know is not super dull, so I'm going to start off with my hundreds. And the reason that I start off with a higher grit, unless that edge is, you know, if I go like this and it cuts my hand, then I'll start at a 400, 600. But I almost always will start with these guys because I want to preserve my other stones. The more work that you do on this level, these can take way more passes on your blade than any other stone on here, except of course the 50 and 80. So I want to, if I go through more of these ones than I go through the other ones, so that's because I do most of my work on here and my 200s, and then I progress to a lower and lower grit as I go along. Alright, so now we need to find our angle. This is an angle cube, and it's bright. So this is an angle cube. Magnets on side, bottom, side, nothing on the top. You absolutely need one of these. I know it shows the angles down here, but I guarantee you that I guarantee you that no matter what angle you set this at, it's very rarely, if I hold this up, so right now it says 20, if I hold this on here, 22, and it says 20 right there, and it's actually 22.2. So anyways, get one of those. So the first thing we do then is we do one side at a time. And make sure these guys are nice and loose. So I turn it on and I pluck it on here. Now you can't so you can see like where do you hold this thing so that you get, because of course as it goes far down it becomes a bigger angle, as you come closer up it becomes a smaller angle. So where the heck do you put this thing? So what I do is that I first of all make sure it's flat. So I hold my fingers on it against the blade so that it's flat, and not moving. And then I hold it basically in between the seats, in between the clamp. Hopefully that won't fall, but the clamp is, part of the clamp is there showing, and the other side is over there. Oh. So I basically hold it in the middle. And what does it say? It says 17.15, and down here it shows 20 degrees. So something isn't right. So what you do then, because that is 17 degrees is not really close to 20, I push my big angle mover thing to the right. Alright, so now I'm on 22.5 degrees, and it shows 19.6. Okay, so this is where you get to use your fine adjustment. So there's 2 screws here. There's one there, one there. This one is your fine angle. So we're gonna adjust this guy until this turns to 20. Okay, so now we got it, and it shows 20.05. I couldn't get 20.00 on this knife. Some knives you can. There might be an imperfection in this blade, not allow me to get to that very last digit. But I mean, 20 point. I mean, honestly, if it says 20 point whatever, you're fine. It is nicer if you can get down at least 1 decimal point of 0. So 20.0 is really good. The last one really is not that relevant. So then after we're done that, I'm gonna tighten up this. Then I tighten up this guy, and then I go to the other side, do the same thing. Shut it off. I use clamps because then the crazy amount of knives that I do, it just got worn out over time, so I've had to use the clamps. And then I can get them on really tight, because I don't like these things to move at all when I'm sharpening. It really is a pain in the neck. Okay, so now that we're all done here, I did skip a step about this the black marker. Before you would set up, you would before I would tighten these, I would take a pass here, with a very light one, like our fine one. So maybe 800 or 1,000. And what it will do is that will show you whether or not you got that angle right. So in this case, it's taken off just, it's taken off the marker to the point where I'm happy. And now I just sharpen. What I like to, so now what you need to do is that you need to sharpen one side at a time, and until you create an edge or a burr on this other side with your fingernail. You sweep your fingernail up, and you will catch it. Once you have that, then you just switch to the other side. And you can do variations. You don't have to do just this. You can do up and down. Especially in dull knives, you want to, this is useful just to go up and down. Or you can use circles. If you're going to do the full sweep, you make sure that so you start off when it's low, and then you slowly raise it up so you get the full use of the stone. If you can hear that. That sound is a burr. So, like I said, this knife was already not that dull. So now with this one, with the other side, now I have to create a burr on this side now. And keep an eye on here. Make sure it doesn't move out of that black lines. Sometimes it will. Make sure the burr is all the way down, even to the very end. Alright, got my burr. That is the hard part. Well, no it's not. It's one of the hard parts. Now that you have that, now just using these strokes, go back and forth down the blade. And every so often you can stop and then carefully run your fingers around the top of the steel. Yeah, we're getting there. All right, so, and also these stones are worn pretty good. I might have to switch to my new ones. So I'm not gonna bore you with the rest because it takes. So some knives, if they're really bad, can take up to an hour to really do. So basically, you go through, and if it's nice and sharp, then turn it. Then turn over, do the 200, and let that, and sharpen your 200. Then you can also, once the 200 is done and it's sharp, then just progress down to your grits, your 400 and 600, and your 800 and 1000, and your 1500. And then I like using tape over leather. I find the leather, I don't know, I don't really care for it very much. I like the tapes. They're quick and easy. Leathers, if you're not careful or if the knife moves, you can actually dull your knife if it's not done right. You also have to bring in, for leathers, you also have to bring them in. Clay, the owner of Wicked Edge, recommends bring it in. So if it's at 20 degrees, bring your arms in to 18 or even 17 degrees before you do your leather, because the leather has give with it, has it's like, that thick, and it's tissue, right? So it has give to it, and so that give can push too far and can create a burr on the other side, which drives you crazy. So that's why he said bring it in at least 3 degrees, 2 to 3 degrees, and then sharpen it so that that doesn't happen. I'm not sure what else I can tell you. Just looking around. Yeah, that's about it. So, if you have any questions, I guess just ask. So, yeah, thanks for watching.